Okay, scholars, we're ready to do our listen and respond for this week of the November the 11th. Red and yellow group, you guys are going to be working on Pete the Cat Rides the Train. So here's the front of the story. I see a train. I see Pete driving the train. Let's see what's on the back. It says, I can read with Pete the Cat, and it's got a dog that looks like he's got a conductor hat on, and then it's got Pete with a conductor hat. So let's go ahead and write down what we need to first. We make sure you have your name at the top. Then make sure you have today's date. So it's either the 11th, if you are red group, or the 12th, if you are yellow group. Okay? So then we'll take down the title. Remember, we capitalize each letter of the title. Pete the Cat Rides the Train. Okay, then it says that we need to look at the front and back covers of the book before we start reading or listening to the story. Then we're going to fill in the chart below. So what do you think this book is going to be about, and why do you think this? I think this book will be about blank. I think this because blank. So we did look at the book already, and we see a train, and we see Pete, and he's got a conductor hat on. So I think this because I see it on the front cover. So you're going to tell me, you're going to fill this blank in what you think this book will be about based off of what we see on the cover. We're just guessing right now. We don't know. We haven't read anything yet. We're just looking at the cover and we're trying to decide what we think this book might be about based off of the title and based off of the pictures on the front and the back. All right, so once we do that, we're going to go to the next part. So we have an idea of what we're looking for when we read, okay? So it says, characters and setting. Readers know that understanding the characters and setting of a story will help them better understand what's going on in this story. List the characters from the story, and what do you know about them? Think inner traits and outer traits. Remember, inner traits are things that are on the inside. We can only decide that based off of what the characters say, what they do, how they act. And then outer traits are things we can see on the outside. Oh, I can see that Pete is a cat. I can see that he has black fur. Right? So things that we can see if we look at them. Let's go ahead and get started reading, and then now we know what we're looking for. So here we go. Pete the Cat Rides the Train. Pete the Cat is right on time. Pete loves to ride the train. He can't wait to see Grandma. There he is at the train station. He's got all his luggage, which is very interesting because I don't ever see Pete wear any clothes, but okay. Pete, Mom, and Bob sit side by side for the train ride. All right. So there's some characters. We got Pete, we got Mom, we got Bob, and they're going to see Grandma. The conductor likes Pete. He invites Pete to ride by his side. Oh, now we've got the conductor. So let's go ahead and write down some characters. I'm just going to do, first I'm going to do Pete, the cat, and I'm going to do the conductor. I can't remember how to spell conductor. Does it have an O-R? It does have an O-R, so I looked back in the story to help me remember how to spell that. All right, conductor. So it said that the conductor invited Pete to come and sit with him on the train. So I'm going to tell you an inner trait for the conductor, and that is he's probably a kind. He's a kind person or dog or whatever he is. I think he's a dog. But he's kind, and I know that because he invited a kid to come and sit with him and help him drive the train. And I feel like a kind person would do that. So I know that because of his actions, not because of anything that I can see about him. And then for Pete, I'm going to give you an outer trait, something we can tell by looking at him. He's a cat. I can look at him and see that he's a cat. So what I need you to do is come up with an inner trait for Pete based on how he acts, and an outer trait for the conductor based on what you see about him. Okay? So now we're ready to do the setting. Remember, the setting is the place or a location. If you can't go to what you write right here, then you might want to change your answer, because we should be able to visit wherever the setting is if we were, if we had the chance to. So the setting of the story is where the story takes place. Like, where is this story happening? So what is the setting of this story? Where are they at? What are they doing? Let's keep reading and see what happens next. Pete says hi to the engineer. The engineer drives the train. He drives inside a tunnel. Yikes, it is dark, but Pete is not frightened. So engineer is another word for conductor. They're the person who drives the train. Goodbye, says the engineer. Pete does not want the train ride to end. All right, let's pause right here so we can make a prediction. So it says make a prediction. A prediction is when readers guess. So you're basically just guessing what might happen next based off of what you know in your own brain about things and what you know so far that's happened in the story. Okay, so we're going to guess what might happen next. It says, what do you think might happen next? Blank has happened in the story, so something I think might happen next is blank. So we're going to fill this blank in together. What has happened in the story? So the train ride is ending. The train ride is ending has happened in the story. So something I think might happen next is blank. So some of us have this copy that has everything written on it, but some of us don't. So I'm going to go ahead and spell this out for the ones of us who need to fill this in on their own. The T-H-E, train, T-R-A-I-N, ride, R-I-D-E, is, I-S, ending, E-N-D-I-G. So the train ride is ending has happened in the story. So something I think might happen next is blank. So you're thinking about what happens when we finish a ride. You're thinking about what has the story told us about where they're going so far. And then you're going to make a prediction about what you think might happen next. Then we're ready to go to the next part. So it says visualize. Readers always think about how the story might look in their heads. Readers make a mind movie about what they are reading and see the story in their heads. So you're just imagining this. If pretend like the book didn't have any illustrations or pictures, and you're thinking, what would this look like if I were there? What would I see? So I'm imagining the part in the story where blank is happening. I'm imagining it looks like blank. 3 things to describe this are blank, blank, and blank. So I am imagining the part in the story where they go through the dark tunnel. All right. So I'm going to spell this out in case you need to copy it. They, T-H-E-Y, go, G-O, through, T-H-R-O-U-G-H. The, T-H-E, dark, D-A-R-K, tunnel, T-U-N-N-E-L. So I am imagining the part in the story where they go through the dark tunnel is happening. I'm imagining it looks like blank. 3 things to describe this are blank, blank, and blank. So on this part right here, you're going to fill this in with one word to describe what you think this would look like. Would it look funny? Would it look scary? Would it look happy? What would you think that this would look like? Maybe exciting. You're going to describe it in one word. When I say describe, that means tell me about. Okay? 3 things to describe this are, so here you're going to tell me exactly what you would see if they were going through the tunnel. So you are going to be very specific on these parts and very vague on these parts. So specific means you're going to tell me details and exactly what you see. Like I see a green chair. I see 3 dogs. I see this. So you're being very specific and telling me as much as you can about what you see. Vague means that you're being you're just telling me one word, and it could be a lot of things. Like if you say it looks scary, well, scary to me might be different than scary to you, right? So we need more information to know exactly what scary looks like. So that's vague. It's just not a lot of information that you're giving the reader or the person. So I'm going to help you out with this first one for 3 things to describe this are. I'm going to say Pete has a frown on his face. So Pete has a frown on his face because it got dark and he maybe got scared. So sometimes when you get scared, you make a frown or your eyes kind of get big. So that's what my example of something I could see is. I want you to come up with 2 more examples of some things that you could see if you were going through a dark tunnel. So if you need to copy this down, Pete, P-E-T-E, has, H-A-S-A, frown, F-R-O-W-N, on, O-N, his, H-I-S, face, F-A-C-E. So once you have that, then we can hop back into the story, and then when we finish, we'll come to summarize. So, goodbye, says the engineer. Pete does not want the train ride to end. Grandma is right on time. Pete loves riding the train, but he loves Grandma even more. The end. All right, so let's talk about this next part. The summarize section says, readers, think about the most important parts of a book. In your own words, give me a summary of the story you just listened to. The story, blank, talks about blank. In the beginning of the story, blank happens. After that, blank happens. In the end of the story, blank happens. So what you're doing is you're going to fill these blanks in about what's going on. So notice when I read you the sentence starters, I skipped the part that was in parentheses. These things right here are called parentheses. And when you see them in a story or like if you're reading something, if you're reading out loud, you're not going to read the part in parentheses out loud. It's there to give you extra information, right? So right now, if we read this, we would skip over that, but we read it in our heads, like we read it silently to ourselves so that we know what we need to do. So it's telling me title of the story. So that lets me know that I need to put the title of the story right here in this blank. Here it's telling me I need to put the characters in this blank. So the story, Pete the cat rides the train. Pete the cat rides the train. And if you notice, I capitalized all of the words except for the articles, right? So I'm not going to capitalize the because it's an article and we don't capitalize those in titles. So Pete is capitalized because that's his name. Cat, rides, and train because that's the title of the story. Now we need to put the characters. So let's do Pete, his family, and the conductor. All right. So if you'll notice, I capitalized Pete because that's his name. So we put a capital letter. I didn't capitalize his family because that's not someone's name. It's just, that's what they are. They're his family. I also didn't capitalize conductor because that's not his name. And in this instance, it's not technically his title. It's just letting us know what he is. So we don't capitalize that. Now we're ready to decide the beginning of the story, the middle of the story, and the end. The way I like to do this is I like to think, okay, what's going on in the beginning? Then in the middle, I like to think, did they have a problem or did something happen that was important? And then at the end, I like to think, how did they solve their problem? So you're going to go ahead and fill these 3 blanks in. Once you're finished, you can work on your word work for this week. If you finish that, then you can move to Lexia or IXL, Epic, or you can read your own book. Please, if you have questions, raise your hand and ask. We want to be able to help you so you guys understand what you're doing.